This is Pod Populi.
Podcast for the people.
The Great Love Debate. It's the Great Love Debate.
The Great Love Debate. It's the Great Love Debate.
Hi again, everyone. It's Brian Howie. Welcome to the Great Love Debate, the world's number one dating and relationship podcast. Since 2015, I am back here in the very fine studios of Pod Populi, Podcast for the People. I am at the one in Scottsdale, Arizona. It is absolutely lovely in Scottsdale, Arizona. Somebody emailed me the other day. They said that you like recording in Scottsdale better than all the other places you record. And I said, I think because I like Scottsdale better than all the other places you record. Although it's a very fine studio. I am very, very hesitant to ever use the words relationship expert on this show because I think it's the one thing that nobody's mastered. But I am going to push that envelope as close as I can today. I have somebody who probably, if we graded everything on the curve, you remember what grading on the curve is? So if there was a scale of who knows the least and who knows the most, I believe I have the person who knows the most, or at least has had more conversations with more people in more forums about more subjects than anybody else. She's written a whole bunch of books on it. She's been on just about every possible television network about it. I don't want to age her too much, but she's been doing this a long, long time. She knows where all the love bodies are buried. The lovely Dr. Gilda Carle. How are you?
Fine. Thank you for having me here.
What did MTV call you? The love goddess?
Thanks so much for upping that. The love doc.
The love doc.
And I couldn't get rid of the title. Here I was teaching at a university, and everybody said, get the love doc to weigh in on this.
Yeah, you're
we were
the love
talking
doc.
about business subjects.
No, you have been the go-to person on just about every media outlet for a long, long time. I wanted to get you in here. Why did you become interested in this subject matter?
I wrote my doctoral dissertation many, many years ago on interpersonal relationships and self-concept. And that all washed into how people relate. Mm-hmm. And I was finding that there were so many problems with interpersonal relationships, and nobody was really delving deep enough into them. So I thought, this is something that fascinates me.
And why do you think it was that we don't dive deep into them? Because of what I said earlier, nobody's really mastered it, or because it hits too close to home for a lot of people? Somebody told me once there's a lot of shows about lawyers, but there's very few even episodes about divorce lawyers because somebody's like, even the people who create them, it hits too close to home.
It's the fear factor once again. People are terrified of getting too close to what really is making them tick. If something is touching them all that much, then they got to run away from it. And then, you see, and this challenged me. So if they have to run away from it, well, I want to run where they're going.
Yeah, I think that's true. You're the moth to the flame. Somebody asked me this the other day. They go, are you ever going to, I've done 50 episodes of this podcast and 500 live shows. They go, you ever going to run out of things to talk about? And I go, no, because it's the one thing that everybody has experience with, good or bad. Everybody has an opinion on. Everybody has anecdotes from. Everybody has pain from. It's the one thing that unites us all is this constant quest, struggle, hope for a fulfilling relationship.
Even those who do not want to admit it. People have told me, I'm not after a relationship now. That's okay.
We say that all the time.
Who's the we? Men?
I say that all the time in my show. I know that people, I hear it all the time.
Okay.
Either they don't trust that it's possible, or they don't know how to find it. Because if you gave the ones who are like, I just want to have fun, one. If you had a notary in here and gave them a document and said, if you sign this, I can give you a happy, loving, sharing, fulfilling, honest relationship with one other person, would you sign for that? They would if they could trust it. They don't trust that it's possible, or they don't trust the notary. I don't know. But they do want it. The ones that are like, I just want to have fun. I'm good. I'm happy being alone. No, you're not.
No, you're not. That is such BS. We know better than that. Everybody is meant to interact.
Right.
And your most fulfilling, most beautiful, and most wonderful relationship is the one that you have with yourself. And if they cannot have relationships with other people, it's only because they have not established themselves as grounded people who can connect with themselves first. In order to say, I love you, it has to come with a capital I.
I think it does. We are wired to be in relation. We are wired to couple, mate, whatever the unattractive term you want to say.
Have sex.
Yeah, we're wired to be together.
Yeah.
We're wired to want another person. And so to deny our fundamental wiring or to lock it off or to shut it off, or I mean, you need to go see a therapist probably before you go on a date, but you have to deal with the why on that. You can't just spend like, I don't know, I'm just happy being alone. I think you have to understand why.
I don't really think they're really happy being alone, and you don't know what happens under their roof when the doors are closed.
Right.
You don't know how much they're crying, how much they're watching the Hallmark Channel. Apologies to Hallmark, but you don't know what's really happening. And when girlfriends get together, I'll let you in on this little secret, Brian. When girlfriends get together, we always talk about men.
Oh, yeah.
And this goes across the board with CEOs that I have counseled, with people who are on lower levels of the corporate echelon who I have worked with. Everybody is interested in talking about men. The women.
Yes. Oh, there's bars, restaurants within 50 feet of here filled with women talking about men, complaining about men, wanting men, whatever. Now, I'm not saying the men won't talk about the women, but they won't talk about it as openly as honestly with a group of women. They might talk about how she looked or what she did or that girl I liked or whatever.
All the superficial stuff.
Right. They're walled off. So I'm not saying it's unhealthy for the women to let it out and do that. They process it a little bit better. The men, some girl at 16 years old might have rejected them or paid no attention to them. That might manifest itself when they're 52 years old in a relationship because they don't process it. You said to me, like, I think you go to therapy. Like me, you like sensed my wounds.
Come on, I've been in this business for quite a while, and I have a pretty good third eye. I'm able to scope out people who are sensitive and people who are walled off.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty obvious to me. It's not obvious to a lot of people, but
It's
I have
scary
been studying
to not
this.
be walled off. It's an easier way to go through with the blinders on and the walls up and emotionally unavailable. It is. It has a ceiling on it, but it also has a higher floor.
And when does the ceiling get met?
The ceiling gets met when you realize that life is not as fulfilling as you probably hope it could be or heard it could be. And you're I'm going through this life in this sort of middle emotional bandwidth. And at some point you feel confident enough or comfortable enough that you're willing to be vulnerable enough to put more chips on the table and go for it. Right?
I think there's something more to that. I think that it reaches its peak when they recognize that something is missing and they don't want to deal with anything beyond the something is missing, but they know that they're miserable. They on some level, I can't believe that they can't imagine that they are not narcissistic. And it's gotten to them that they can't give. And the beautiful thing about relationships is the giving and receiving. I just turned to a guy recently and said, "You have a problem with receiving, don't you?" And he was just taken aback. He said, "Yeah."
Because they don't feel worthy.
Worthy. It all comes down to
They don't
worthiness.
trust the concept of worthy, and that could go back to childhood. You didn't receive the love that your parents, grandparents, family gave to you. You didn't learn how to properly I'm one of these people. You didn't learn how to properly absorb it, and so getting it from new people is scary.
Or maybe the kind of love that they were getting was not healthy.
Right. Or it wasn't something that sort of matched their wiring.
Yeah.
So you've been doing this a long time. Again, not to age you. How have things changed since you started doing this?
Boy.
How's the dialogue at least changed?
Well, now there's more hiding. More hiding than I have ever seen before. The ghosting and the breadcrumbing and the gaslighting and all the other things that we have these beautiful fancy words for. in essence, it's all hiding. It's running from.
Right.
And because of that, the people that they leave in their midst are pissed off. They are furious. And they don't know what to do and how to correct it. And of course, if they're if they have a shabby self-esteem, they'll say, well, what did I do wrong? If I could only have been more beautiful, thinner, richer.
Right.
I mean, whatever it is. If only I could have been. And the truth is, they were putting out the best they could.
Right.
And for everybody out there who's listening, please understand, you did the best you could with all the information you had at that moment. Mm-hmm. And now it's up to the other person because it has to be a give and take.
It has to be a give and take. And some people don't necessarily give and take as overtly, maybe, how we communicate with each other. Maybe she did feel that way or he felt that way and they just didn't communicate it in a way that the other person could hear and accept.
And God forbid we should share our feelings.
Oh, I know. I hear this from a lot of women all the time. I'm like, she's like, yeah, I thought we had a good time and he didn't ask me out again. And I go, well, maybe he couldn't tell that you had a good time. And she's like, he could tell. No, he probably couldn't tell.
Oh my God.
It's a level only dogs can hear. These women say, oh, I put out all the signals that we want. I had no idea. Sometimes the men have no idea because a lot of the time the dialogue is coming from the man. You look beautiful. Would you like to go out? This was great. And she's probably at best saying, thank you. That's not the same as him hearing the words back. And a lot of women are like, I shouldn't have to spell it out for him. You have to spell it out for him sometimes. Sorry.
I'm afraid you're right. Are we supposed to be disagreeing?
I don't want to be right, but a lot of times this, yin and yang, Mars and Venus, whatever we want to say, we know that we do not communicate to each other in the same way, in the same decibels, in the same anything, yet we don't take the steps to try and understand either ourselves or our partners or the relationship enough to properly work through the muck to get to the other side and be a good relationship.
I want to put a footnote on something that you said.
Okay.
You said even dogs? No, that only dogs can hear. I think even dogs cannot hear.
Yeah.
It's so bad.
I know.
It's so obscure.
Even the dogs can. It's so obscure. This woman came to one of our live shows in Chicago, and she goes, this is what I do when I like a guy to let him know that I like him. She was a statue. I'm like, what did you just do? She's like, it's very subtle. I'm like, it's too subtle. What did you do? She I moved my eyebrow. And sort of I go, nobody ever would see that. And she's like, the ones who I'm interested will see that. I go, nobody will see that. And I asked, we had a big crowd. I asked the audience and people were like, what are you talking about? And she was so stubborn and so basically putting it out there that only the man who would pick up on my signal is a man worthy enough for me, but she is subconsciously or consciously making that signal so obscure that then she's like, oh, I just haven't found a man to pick it up instead of taking responsibility.
Oh, God. I wrote a book called, one of my many books, I wrote a book called I'm Worth Loving. Here's Why. The book sold and continues to sell so well because people don't understand that they are worth loving.
They are.
And they don't understand why. If you can't put it out there that you walk into that room and you take that room over, well, then you better see somebody to work on that.
Well, how do you do that? Then that's a good question. That's my next point. Somebody who does not feel worth loving, worthy of love, how do you get them to flip the switch? How do you convince them that everybody is in some way worth loving?
Well, if I said on this podcast, how about seeing a therapist?
Yeah, I know. And then a lot of people are like, I can't afford a therapist.
Okay, I can't afford.
Then you're going to say, read my book?
Okay,
I mean,
there are millions of self-help books out there.
And it's easier than ever. There's more information out there. You can watch YouTube videos. You can read books.
If you don't want to read a book, if you're not a reader, watch YouTube videos. Do whatever it takes for you to get out of what you consider yourself in your comfort zone.
Because a lot of people are scared of the answers.
Of course.
They're scared to discover why either they are unlovable or they feel unlovable. That's too scary for them. Not everybody wants to pick up the rock and see all the bugs that have crawled beneath it. Like, that is a scary proposition. You have to be ready for the answers, good or bad. When I first started going to therapy, I was looking for a therapist that would tell me I was awesome. And there was nothing wrong with me. Stop coming to me. I should pay you to hear me. I was looking for that in a therapist. Tough to find.
Every time I walked onto a talk show, I did all the talk shows, especially Sally Jesse Raphael for years and years. Every time I would walk on, somebody who's sitting on the stage would say, "Uh-oh, she's here today. Oh my God." Because with me, you get the truth.
Yeah, no bullshit.
There's no bull. No,
yeah,
no.
I know.
What's the sense otherwise? And I do this in my life. I walk my talk. I have to be my own authentic person. I spent years in therapy too. I did everything you've done. I've done that and more. Years crying on the couch, years going through all of this. And I came out of the dark tunnel into the light, and I realized that I can help other people, and they've got to be open to be helped. And that's number one.
All right, we are going to cry on the couch some more in a minute. I got to take a quick break because we're going to pay for things like couches and therapy around here. I'm with Dr. Gilda Carle. We're diving into all sorts of boy and girl things, but we will be back right after this. And we are back. And you gave me a book a couple weeks ago. What's the prince? Give me the... Sorry, the book's around here. What's the title?
Don't bet on the prince.
What does that mean?
How to have the man you want for betting on yourself. And the interesting thing about that book, and it became a cult book. It's interesting because I based it on business principles. Now I'm very heavily into Sun Tzu, The Art of War, and I write everything with that in mind because the true objective.
I need to read The Art of War to have better relationships?
Yes.
Probably.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because
Go
the
into
true
battle armed.
objective, the true objective of war is peace.
Right.
And people don't realize that. And that's what I want to get across to everybody, to understand that you are not put on this earth to be fighting and arguing and everything. I met this guy who had a mentality like a 15-year-old teenage boy. Everything anybody said to him was no. And he dug his heels into the sand with each statement that everybody else made.
His default was no.
It was always no. And he didn't even realize that. And I said, my God, you're like my former 15-year-old stepson who would say no automatically. And think about that. You have to hear your own words. That is very, very important. Leave a tape recorder on as you talk to people on the telephone. Hear the way you react. Hear the way you emote or not emote. That's very
That's
telling.
a really good point. And I know that in the studio, a lot of people, do podcasts and they haven't quite heard their voice for the first time. And they're like, is that how I sound? Or they'll listen to it and they'll say, oh, I say a lot. I say like a lot. Like, people don't know their tone in regular conversation. They certainly don't know their tone or their words when emotion is involved. And they don't know how things might be getting across. And they don't know how they sometimes imagine that they said certain things or said certain things in a certain way. And the other person is like, that is not what I got out of that at all.
Well, one of the tricks, in order to be sure that the other person is hearing that what you are saying, is to ask the person to reiterate what you said. Did I say that right? Put yourself out there as somebody who needs correcting, and say, did I say that right? Did that come out right? What did you hear me say? And let that person feed it back to you.
That could have been, I know, you're right. And in a perfect world, that works. But that could lead to a fight when they're repeating it back. And I'm like, oh my God, that's not what I said. You're not listening to me.
No.
Everything
has to, I understand.
I've had girlfriends say to me one time, I only kind of half listen to everything from anybody. I go, that's really frustrating that's got to be frustrating in business or personal that you're kind of hearing every third word. Like, there's important matters that you have to be present for and you have to absorb. And you do have to hit back the ping pong ball to the other person to let them know that you're at least, you don't have to agree with it, but you do have to receive it, right?
Listening is the nicest thing you can do for somebody. And we are not a good listening culture. We're horrible, as a matter of fact. I've done a lot of corporate training. I do a lot. I continue to do a lot of media training, and it has to do with listening to the other side before you respond. But in this crazy culture, until you get your chance to speak, you're not happy.
I know.
So it's a matter of, okay, when will this person shut up so I can get my 2 cents in?
That's
not right.
I tell the men all the time, she doesn't need to be right, but she does need to be heard.
Bingo.
And that is sometimes hard for people to understand. It's like you have to let her, there could be reasons why she feels or thinks or says certain things a certain way that have absolutely nothing to do with you. It
Probably
might pass,
don't.
Probably don't. You just have to hear her. That is really important to her a lot more than it is to men. The men do want to be right. I don't want you to hear me unless you think I'm right. You know, it's a waste.
That's a problem.
I know that's another problem. I agree.
That's chapter 3.
That's chapter 3. What is the first? Take therapy out of it for a second. But the first, I think the big picture answers always lie outside your comfort zone. I think you have to take chances and all that. That's hard as a first step. The first step is what? Getting comfortable having conversations with other people without romantic intent? No.
Nope.
What is it?
The first step is to know yourself, know what you're comfortable with, know what makes you uncomfortable, and be able to accept all of that.
The list of what makes people uncomfortable or they don't like, they've thought about much more than what makes them comfortable and like.
Everybody's pissed. This is a pissed off culture.
People don't take the time to think about what they like because halfway through that meditative exercise, they're like, except that one guy who did this, and then it turns into the negative. So you have to think positively, well, what do I want to get out of my day? What do I want to get out of this encounter? What do I want to get out of this relationship? And sort of start slow, set some achievable goals, right? The old, you got to make the bed, get something accomplished.
I think the best thing that everybody can do before they go to sleep every single night is think, what one thing was the best thing that happened today? What are the 3 best things that happened today?
What I learned today. Yeah.
What did I learn today? We would be better writing these things down.
We would.
So that we are not angry when we wake up. People tell me all the time, watching the news at night makes me crazy. I get angry. Yeah. I get so upset.
Right.
Well, don't watch the news. That's all negative stuff. I've been in the media for years and years, and so have you.
Right.
And when it bleeds, it leads.
Right.
And that's all they care about. They're interested in selling shock.
Leave your day with some positivity.
Yeah.
I know someone who, before she goes to bed, she has to swipe on 20 people online to get 20 matches. And I'm like, why? First of all, you're stimulating your brain online, but I go, do you need to go to bed with validation? Is that what you need to know that you're still attractive at the end of the day? And she's like, yeah, I just need to know that, like, it helps me understand that somebody might like me. I go, they just think you're attractive. I don't know about that.
No.
And I'm like, there's got to be a better way.
There's a book for that. I'm worth loving. Here's why. Okay, but you said something on one of your podcasts that was fascinating to me, and it was so insightful. And for a man with therapy, obviously, who knew what he was talking about. You said, and it was a bad paraphrase, have your man stand in front of you for protection, the side of you for love, behind you for belief.
Yes, that was a pretty good paraphrase.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Okay.
Right. And I tell there's 3 things that he can do.
Okay.
Yeah, in front of her
for
to protect,
protection,
beside her
for love,
to love, and behind her to believe.
How does the belief come into play?
It means that I think you're good enough in whatever you're doing. A lot of times, your partner, man, woman, whatever that is, needs to know. I think it's easier to find somebody to love you than to believe in you. And that is the rarest thing. I think I have probably had, I don't know, on a good day, a dozen people probably love me. I think I've had 2 people in my whole life, career, whatever, that I can say without any equivocation, they believed in me. And they changed my life, and they made me feel better about myself, and they did more for me than anybody. I think people are desperately looking for that outside of their nuclear family. They are looking for somebody to really believe that they are good enough, positive enough, talented enough, whatever it is you need. And so if she's like, I'm going to go start this business, I am going to go run this half marathon, you letting her know that
Honey,
I believe in you and I stand behind you in all of your endeavors, rather than saying, why are you doing that? Well, that's a waste of time. What do you need to do that for? Aren't you busy? Bringing people down. And a lot of partners that are, we're in a relationship a long time. I can say this to somebody because we've been married for 15 years. No. They need to know that if they have imagination or a whim or a passion or a curiosity to do something, that you need to support that. And that is really important to me.
Because I've been in this business a very long time, I've changed my advice to people. Over the years, I had a nonprofit for homeless female veterans. They taught me a lot. They taught me what they say in battle is, I have your six. I got your six. And six meaning 12, 6, I got your back.
Oh, yeah.
And now my whole thing with people who I advise is, does he have your back? Does she have your back? This is essential. And I even wrote a book.
If I fall, will you catch me? That is so important.
I wrote this book called Don't Lie on Your Back for a Guy Who Doesn't Have Yours. Crappy English, but man, that book is selling like crazy.
I know it's a good title because it's a good thought.
Because, if don't lie on your back for somebody who doesn't have your back. And that's whether you're male or female. And I originally created that book for young women because as the Love Doc on MTV, I was hearing again and again and again, well, he did this and he did this and then he dumped me. And I said, well, what did you give him? Mm-hmm. Well, we slept together. I said, whoa, what did you get back? And what's wrong with anybody saying, with him, what's in it for me?
Right.
Oh, well, I can't do that. Oh, yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
You should do that. I do that in business situations.
And he kind of wants to know what you want in return. Like set the bar here.
The
he
boundaries.
will jump up. Yeah, I agree with you.
There are no boundaries. And that's one of the changes that has occurred right now. No boundaries. Oh, I'll do whatever he wants. And I hear from women who are getting divorced again and again and again.
Right.
But I gave him everything he wanted. I said, bingo, that's what you did wrong.
I know. I talk a lot on the show about the blurring of traditional gender roles when it comes to dating and how much that screwed things up. Oh. Nobody's leading. We don't ask each other out. I can't pick you up. The chivalry's dead. We make the same amount of money, all that kind of thing. Who pays? It's so screwed because biologically, I think we still are wired a certain way. Mm-hmm. Societally, we may have changed, but on a date, I still think we're boys and girls, and I still think he wants to be the man, and you have to allow him to. You have to dial back that masculine energy sometimes, even though it's hard for you because you want to protect yourself, and you have to allow him to be what he's wired.
What are you protecting yourself from? Well,
I don't want to be weak. 10. If I go hold the door for 10 women, 5 will be like, I don't need you to do that.
Oh my God!
Somebody held the door for me the other day. It was very luxurious. I walked right through. It was awesome. I'm like, why would the women not like this?
It's horrible.
Didn't have to touch anything. It was super.
No, I think, society, whatever society is today, may be dictating certain mores that don't work with the wiring that we have.
I agree.
And I think that people have got to catch up with that. Take, for example, the millennial couple of the year, of the century, Taylor Swift and
Travis Kelce. Yeah.
Take that couple. Now, they would know how woke works. He pursued her. And in a woke culture, that would not happen.
He shot his shot. Yeah.
He did it, and he tried again and again and again, tried to give her his number through many different sources. Mm-hmm. And if not for Jason Sudeikis, who played matchmaker, mm-hmm. that may never have happened.
Right. But he let it be known.
And he let it be known, and he's not afraid of letting it be known. And she was not afraid of letting him take the lead.
And if you see them out together, he's a big guy. It does help, but he's every bit the protector. He physically is playing that role. She's traditionally dated a lot of these sort of emo poet boys and actors and musicians, and props to them, but they were in the same energy as her. And I think that's part of why there's ultimately probably some disappointment in that, because she's expecting something that they're not giving. This is probably outside of her comfort zone. I'm not saying it's going to work out. I'm not saying it is, but at least it has a shot to shake up her snow globe a little bit and see if anything's different, you know?
I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful to watch. I hope they do well, and I hope they walk into the sunset happily ever after.
They do. Give me one thing that if you had a 500 women here and you had to tell the women, this is what you need to change or do better, and then I'm going to ask you the same thing for the men. If you had a room full of women and you had to just been like, listen, collectively, you need to do this, what?
Take a chance.
That's a good answer. That's the comfort zone thing. Take a
It
chance.
certainly is. Get outside that comfort zone, because the comfort zone is a myth. You know how to spell that?
One of the famous things I always say is that you need to get rid of the words "not my type." If you're over 30,
Oh, that's a whole other
if
chapter.
you're over 30 and you're still single, you have no type. Your type's not working out for you.
That's it. That's right.
like-
Okay, it has your. This is what people
Right.
do when people say to me, "Well, that's not my type." Well, how has that worked out
I
for
know
you?
all those ex-boyfriends, they weren't your type either. You know, there's this matchmaking company, and I won't name names, but they ask their clients to bring in pictures of their exes so they know what they liked. I'm like, that is the opposite of what you should be doing. That is everything that didn't work out. I agree. All right, same exercise for the men.
One of my Gildagrams for men. You will never be loved if you can't risk being disliked.
Oh, that's pretty good.
I never saw you so silent.
That's very profound. I had to absorb that. That's really good. Feels like something I would say, but I didn't say that.
Yeah, it could be something you would
sure
say.
Feels like fruit of my tree. That's good, though. I like that.
Thank you.
People don't want to risk. That's the risk on that side. You don't want that.
A man told me that he feels very comfortable texting because it's safe.
Yeah.
I said, safe from what?
We all, that's the biggest problem in 2024. We hide behind our electronics. We're so afraid to approach each other face to face anymore. Wait, I don't know you. Why are you talking to me? What do you want from me? It's such a weird energy. Men back in the 50s used to have to get up, walk across the floor, introduce themselves, and then ask her to dance, and then dance with her. You think it's hard now? That was hard.
I was living in New York, standing, looking into some beautiful window on Madison Avenue, not even turning around. I was really enthralled with this window. Guy comes up behind me. And in New York, you wouldn't let that happen to you now. But, okay, guy comes behind me. He says, see anything you like? Without even turning around, I said, are you buying? And I turned around. He was cute. And he was a nice lawyer. And we went out. And I was a teacher in the South Bronx during those days. And it was great fun. And I felt safe enough to respond to him. But he felt safe enough to take the risk with some unknown woman who's just standing there.
Yeah. Did you grow up in New York?
Yes.
That is a little bit of an advantage because New Yorkers are not afraid to show personality sometimes.
Well, I don't know what it is today anymore.
Well, I don't know what it is today anymore, but back then I do have that.
I had a wonderful life in New York.
All right, we're going to let you plug all your books and stuff in a second, but I know you don't like to get too personal, but one thing we play with our guests on this podcast is we play something called Worst Date or First Date. So you have to think back to either the worst date you've ever had in your life or the best first date you've ever had in your life. Your choice.
That's so hard for me because I make everything into a good date.
Okay. Is there a date that you turned around then?
Well, if I turn it around, then I'm his therapist, and I don't want to do that, so I don't. I mean, if something is objectionable to me, I will hold on to that and see if there's a pattern to that, and then I will decide what I'm going to do. So I need to go out with him a few times.
That's very good advice. Somebody might just make a mistake or they'd be nervous and they spilled that wine on you. I think if it was something flammable, it's probably the end of the road.
We're talking danger.
Right. But something like, that's good advice. Like, give it a chance to work through the ick and get into a rhythm, you know?
Well, listen, I too have my barriers. We all have our barriers. Let's accept that and say, put that aside and give this guy an opportunity.
Is it intimidating to date you knowing what you do?
Well, you just hit that nail on the head pretty well.
All right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be, right?
Every time I say to somebody, well, I'm a relationship expert. Uh-oh, is the response.
Or they probably said like, well, how does it working out for you? They always want to put that card on.
Oh,
right?
please.
Yeah.
Well, I've had many I've been married, divorced, living with people. I mean,
It takes a lot of relationship talent to get out of a bad relationship as to get in and a good one. People underestimate that. Just because you've been with the same person for 50 years doesn't mean that that's the right move. You maybe should have pulled the chute at 30 and gotten to a better relationship.
Doesn't mean that was the right relationship
Doesn't
for
mean
you
that.
today. It might have been the right relationship.
And hopefully
right?
it is. And hopefully you grow together and whatever. But
Well,
some people are together out of habit, comfort,
Yeah.
or fear. A lot of people stay together out of fear.
Most people these
Yeah.
days, they're terrified.
They think it's a game of musical chairs and they won't get a seat.
Ever. Again.
They're like, this is fine. This is good. That's good. All right.
That's where it all revolves around loving yourself. Capital I, all the way.
How many books do you have?
19.
Is it like naming 19 children? It'd be hard.
They're all very different.
All right. Give 3 books that they should pick up of yours.
It depends upon where their head is at. Don't Bet on the Prince
Yeah.
I mean, that was the first, and then it became a cult. Especially now, Don't Lie on Your Back for a Guy Who Doesn't Have Yours.
Mm-hmm.
And I also wrote a couple of business books. One Up Strategies Business Schools Don't Teach, because I teach at a business school.
Well, there you go.
So
there are crossovers in business and in love and life.
There's
A lot of them are life lessons. Like I always tell people, you want to get good at business or you want to get good at dating, take an improv class.
Oh, I agree.
Because life is improv.
Yes.
And in a
yes.
moment, being able to be something else or reveal something else or try something else is such a valuable skill.
Oh, you're so right.
I know. This was fun. This wasn't
It
too
was.
painful, was it?
Painful?
Yeah.
No, you're a pleasure.
Okay. See? Hear that? Great love listeners. They can follow you where? drgilda.com?
Yep, drgilda.com.
See? That wasn't so hard. As far as us, like, share, follow. Please review this podcast. After 10 years of doing this, your reviews still mean a lot in the podcasting ecosystem. Shoot us an email, greatlovedebate@gmail.com. If you got questions, thoughts, comments for me, Dr. Gilda, we'll pass them along. We're going to have her back. Obviously, she's got a lot more. There's a lot more to bite off this apple. She's got a lot more things to say. Go to greatlovedebate.com, our live tour schedule. I can't promise how many shows I'm doing, but I definitely have some on the books because people are calling and they're saying, oh, you're doing more shows? You got to come to New York and do a show. And I just might. Because as always, at The Great Love Debate, we never stop making love. See you next time.